Ship of Wikipedia, when essential oversight becomes entrenched authority. Wikipedia stands as an unprecedented monument to collective intelligence, a global encyclopedia built by countless hands, constantly evolving, and freely accessible. Its very existence is a testament to the power of open collaboration, a beacon of shared knowledge in an increasingly fragmented digital world. This monumental achievement, however, would swiftly dissolve into a chaotic battleground of misinformation and vandalism were it not for the tireless, often thankless, work of its volunteer moderation community. These individuals are the unseen architects, the dedicated custodians who enforce order, uphold standards, and safeguard the integrity of this vital public resource. Their necessity is, beyond any reasonable doubt, absolute. Yet, within the very structures designed to protect Wikipedia's core tenets, a troubling dynamic has taken root. The critical role of moderation, indispensable as it is, has, in many instances, bred an environment where power, even in a volunteer capacity, has calcified into an unyielding authority. What emerges is not merely a system of oversight, but what many perceive as a MOD Mafia, a formidable, often inscrutable, force whose essential contributions are increasingly overshadowed by behaviors that stifle, alienate, and ultimately diminish the very community they are meant to serve. The perversion of power, intellectual superiority, and bullying. The most pervasive symptom of this unchecked authority is the striking intellectual superiority complex that permeates many moderation interactions. This isn't about expertise, it's about the weaponization of knowledge and policy. Discussions, intended to be collaborative and open, often devolve into a condescending display of wiki lawyering. A new contributor, perhaps eager to add a well-sourced fact to an article, might find their diligent work summarily reverted, not with a helpful suggestion, but with a curt, acronym-laden dismissal referencing obscure policy pages. The tone, frequently clinical and devoid of empathy, suggests an immediate assumption of bad faith, a presumption that the new editor is either malicious or incompetent, rather than simply unfamiliar with the labyrinthine rules. This intellectual posturing frequently morphs into outright bullying. The moderation community, intentionally or unintentionally, can create an insular echo chamber where dissent is met with collective force. A user who persists in arguing a point, no matter how well sourced or logically presented, against a moderator's preferred stance, might find themselves subjected to a barrage of reverts, public shaming on discussion forums, or even administrative sanctions like blocks. This is not about correcting vandalism. It's about quashing disagreement through displays of authority. Imagine a situation where a user is trying to improve an article, only to have their edits repeatedly undone with minimal explanation, followed by a warning about edit warring, a policy often selectively enforced against the less powerful. The systematic weaponization of policies, originally designed to protect the encyclopedia, becomes a means to enforce conformity and silence inconvenient voices. Beyond the procedural maneuvering, the psychological toll is compounded by instances of outright cattiness and profound personal cruelty. While official guidelines forbid personal attacks, the language employed by some moderators can veer into profoundly unprofessional behavior, ranging from passive-aggressive insults to thinly veiled contempt, and even outright dismissive, often character-assassinating, name-calling. It's not uncommon to find discussions where a legitimate content dispute, such as a disagreement over the title of a collection, escalates to bizarre, disproportionate personal attacks, like an editor's stylistic choice being likened to the ego of a notorious cult figure. Even more unsettling are speculative, deeply inappropriate comments on another editor's presumed psychological state or personal life, found buried deep within official talk pages and internal discussions. Beneath the veneer of objective rule enforcement, there often lies a current of petty gossip and slandering remarks about individual contributors' dedication or perceived eccentricities. These are not professional corrections. They are often deeply unkind remarks designed to belittle, invalidate, and emotionally exhaust a dissenting voice. Crucially, the rules, frequently invoked to justify such behavior or suppress a particular viewpoint, are often presented as immutable objective truths, yet, upon closer inspection, they are clearly just subjective interpretations, convenient opinions dressed up in official jargon to lend them an unchallengeable authority. This arbitrary application of selectively interpreted guidelines creates a deeply unfair and demoralizing environment for anyone not part of the established clique. The unseen hand, when online power fills a void. The root of this problem often lies in a more unsettling sociological dynamic. We must reflect on what happens when individuals who may feel a lack of significant power, influence, or social capital in their offline lives are suddenly granted immense authority within an online sphere. While not a universal truth about all moderators, there is an observable pattern of behavior consistent with this phenomenon. It manifests as a profound rigidity and rule fetishism, where the letter of Wikipedia's law is applied with an almost zealous devotion, often disregarding its spirit or the common sense context. This obsessive adherence to procedures can serve as a compensatory mechanism, a means to assert control and dominance when other avenues might be lacking. Interactions become devoid of social nuance, warmth, or understanding, resembling cold, bureaucratic transactions. The focus shifts from fostering collaboration to administering penalties, from guiding new users to swiftly correcting perceived transgressions with a punitive hand. Furthermore, these individuals, often coalescing around shared interpretations and enforcing group consensus, can create powerful feedback loops. An online environment, structured around hierarchy and rule enforcement, allows for the assertion of intellectual dominance to win arguments, not through persuasion, but through the invocation of administrative power. This breeds a form of online insularity where dissenting voices within the moderation ranks are also subtly suppressed, leading to a kind of groupthink that reinforces problematic behaviors and makes systemic change exceedingly difficult. It's a sobering illustration of how power, when given to those unaccustomed to its burden or consequences, can be over-exercised, sometimes with a chilling dispassion. The profound cost to Wikipedia's mission. The consequences of this MOD MAFIA dynamic are far-reaching and gravely threaten the very ethos of Wikipedia. The most immediate impact is a devastating chilling effect. Countless talented, passionate, and well-meaning contributors, initially drawn to the vision of open knowledge, are driven away. They are either silenced, exhaustively argued into submission, or simply give up in frustration, rather than face constant nitpicking, condescension, or the arbitrary threat of sanction. This doesn't just mean fewer editors, it means a loss of diverse perspectives, critical thinking, and potentially vast swaths of knowledge that simply never make it onto the platform. When only those willing to conform to a specific, often rigid, culture are comfortable contributing, the intellectual breadth and depth of Wikipedia inevitably suffer. The encyclopedia, intended to be a reflection of all human knowledge, risks becoming homogenized, reflecting only the biases and priorities of its most powerful and vocal gatekeepers. Trust in the fairness and impartiality of the system erodes, transforming Wikipedia from an open public utility into something resembling an exclusive, self-governing club. New ideas, dissenting scholarly interpretations, or challenges to long-held but potentially outdated narratives are suppressed, leading to stagnation rather than the dynamic evolution that is Wikipedia's hallmark. Reclaiming the collaborative spirit. To truly fulfill its promise as the free encyclopedia that anyone can edit, Wikipedia's necessary guardians must be held to a higher standard of conduct and accountability. This demands a critical re-evaluation of the moderation process itself. We need radical transparency, clearer, more accessible explanations for moderation actions, moving beyond opaque policy citations. Accessible conflict resolution, robust, independent, and empathetic mechanisms for users to appeal decisions, ensuring they don't face the very authority they are challenging. A culture of mentorship, a concerted effort to shift from punitive correction to constructive guidance, particularly for new editors. Active diversification, deliberate efforts to broaden the demographic and philosophical scope of the moderation community, breaking down existing cliques. Accountability for conduct, clearer standards and enforcement mechanisms for moderator behavior, ensuring that intellectual superiority and bullying are not tolerated. Wikipedia's future depends on ensuring that its guardians remain true to its founding principles. The indispensable power wielded by its moderation community must be continuously examined, tempered by humility, and guided by a genuine spirit of collaboration. Otherwise, the very forces meant to protect this bastion of knowledge risk transforming it into a monument of unyielding, exclusive authority.